Traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and arrive at episode number 385, and when you have a nose like his, it's wise to follow it sometimes. I'm Keith.
I'm Sean.
I'm Glenn.
How are you guys?
Very good.
I'm good.
Following your noses?
It always knows.
Among other things.
Did you guys have a good week?
Yeah, not bad. I mean, I haven't done much this
Do
week.
anything fun?
No. Caught up on Arrested Development, so I'm all caught up on that now. They dropped another season a week or two ago.
Yeah, that's right.
So I'm caught up on season 5 now. And
I'm in season 2.
it's seasons 1, 2, and 3 are still its best. Season 4 was rough, but I did go back just this last month and watch the re-edit, which I think worked better. It's obvious to me now, the re-edits, but I think if you're coming to it for the first time, you might not notice it, and I think it makes it a little smoother. Season 5, I still don't know what to think about, but I'm going to have to do a rewatch of it and see, but it felt a little rough, but I don't even know what I mean by that, but it just felt wrong. So, Anyway, did you guys do anything, watch anything?
We finished up The Toys That Made Us.
Oh, yeah.
Season 2.
It was pretty good. I think season 1's better, but season 2 was pretty interesting. We watched all of it. Like, in the process of watching season 1, season 2 dropped, and I did not do that on purpose. It just so happened that, 8-part documentary series, okay. Oh, look, all 8 parts are now here. Season 2 is pretty interesting.
It surprised me that Star Trek was listed on that. When you tell me when you tell me toys from my childhood, Star Trek is not on that list. You know,
well, and, so many of the stories that they tell are, huge successes. Not Star Trek. That's kind of the one exception to the entire series, which is interesting, but it has starts you off on season 2 with a really weird foot of. But we were talking about toys that were really successful and huge and kind of their rise and fall, and this is just kind of a downward spiral from the get-go. What? But the other ones were pretty interesting. Even the Transformers and Hello Kitty was actually more interesting than I thought it would be.
We watched Upgrade.
Upgrade?
It's a new movie from Blumhouse. But if you've seen the trailer, which normally would not be my scene, if you've seen the trailer, this guy, he's in an accident, he becomes a paraplegic or quadriplegic, no arms and legs usage. Quadriplegic. So he has a chip implanted in him that's supposed to control his motor functions, and then it starts talking to him.
All right.
Think Big Hero 6. What if Baymax was a badass? That was about it. We finished off watching the Oceans movies, getting ready for Oceans 8, but didn't get out to see it this weekend.
Cool. Should we move on to news?
No news.
Well, there's no real news this week, but we do want to take this opportunity to let you know and remind you that there are places that you can catch us other than iTunes. We are actually now on Google Play Podcasts, which is a new development for us. So if you are a Google Play user, you can find us there. The podcast is there as well. There's a link on our website. We are also on TuneIn now, which is another big one. Some of the ones that we're currently on and have been on for a while, but just as a reminder, iTunes obviously, Stitcher, Pocket Cast, Player FM. We're also on Blueberry if you use that, and we are on Mixcloud. There is one slight little issue with Mixcloud. When searching it, if you put the X on the end of it, you may not find it. So it's traveling the vortex right now until we get some issues worked out. And we're still waiting on a few others. We decided to, again, we've been on a lot of these for a while, but we thought, let's get on some of the other ones and let people know, because we know that iTunes isn't your only source for podcasts for most listeners.
And maybe you have a favorite, but you're using some other service to get us. And maybe we are in your favorite.
And keep in mind that you can go to our website and get our RSS feed and type that into your own podcast aggregator, and it will also search that feed, and you can subscribe from there as well. So that's simple to do as well. One of the things that we wanted to also mention this week is while you're at those sites, especially iTunes, if you leave us a review, we would appreciate that, because the reviews also help generate likes for us on those websites and gets the word out that we're out there, and gets the word out that we're a Doctor Who podcast first and foremost, and that there are people that listen to us and like us. So 5-star reviews are preferred, but you don't have to. We want you to rate us whatever you want. But those 5 stars, those 5 stars are what get us out there in popularity on those podcasts. But we do want you to be honest. So.
Did we deliver awesome service? Give us a 5.
We do want to thank the people that have done reviews for us on iTunes and other podcasts because those have helped as well. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. And of course, while you're on our website, you can send us feedback if you want. You can send it to feedback@travelingthevortex or click on the Send Us Feedback tab. If you're looking at our Facebook page, you can also click the email button there and send it to us directly.
Yep. Go to the feedback mailbox. So.
And we'll read it out.
Yes, we will.
Unless you tell us not to.
And while we're...
even then, we still might.
while we're asking for our listeners to do things for us, also consider supporting us on Patreon. If you go to our website, travelingthevortex.com, there is a button there, and it makes it easy. It walks you through the process. All of those proceeds go right back into this show. Anything else?
We are very, very appreciative.
So we got news out of the way and feedback out of the way. What's next?
Reviews! The Magician's
That should have went before the news, right?
Yeah.
Well, there wasn't any, so.
You must never tell, not a soul. That's the Magician's Oath. A heat wave in July and a tube train is discovered buried in 20 inches of snow. A Saturday afternoon in Hyde Park, and scores of people are instantly frozen to death where they stand while the sun beats down from the sky. Freak weather conditions in London, and the Third Doctor and unit are called in to find the cause. Meanwhile, a street magician.
Street musician.
So natural.
You heard
musician.
You heard a different story than I did.
Who was witnessed at the scene of the tragedy, entertains crowds in Covent Garden. As Joe Grant and Mike Yates disobey orders and investigate alone, they discover an enemy with terrifying powers, and they may not live to share his secrets.
Bum, bum, bum.
I wasn't wowed by this one.
Oh,
I enjoyed it. It was thoroughly. It was fine.
Well, I guess to be honest, I wasn't wowed by it, but I liked it. I quite liked it.
It was better than Cats. I'll listen to it again and again. No, I enjoyed it. At least the first probably 2/3 of it. I think it fell apart a little bit at the end.
I think that's my issue with it.
Okay.
After all, I enjoyed it while listening to it, but all said and done, I was like, okay, well, that was that. I'm moving on, just because it kind of does fall apart, and it feels like two very different ideas trying to be shoved together in one. And
that's kind of what I got out of it.
And while the kind of twist at the end of who this magician is cool, it feels so disjointed from the first 2/3 that it doesn't match well, I think. Had it been a different story leading up to this reveal of, he's a wanted murderer, mass murderer of all these people, and we wiped his mind so he doesn't remember and he's on Earth now, that has a story that's ripe with potential that could have done much more with than I think it did.
I agree. I think for me, it was you either needed to tell the strange but cool story of this magician that maybe was inadvertently causing these weather changes, or the story of the mass murderer who didn't know who he was. But trying to make them both the same is kind of like, I don't know that fits as well as maybe it's supposed to. Because it such a tonal shift there.
Right.
Left turn at the end of it. I really, really liked the first half of it, though. The magician story and the detail with the frozen Hyde Park and listening to Yates, what's his name?
Richard Franklin.
Franklin, thank you. I keep on calling him Richard Yates. It's like, that's not it. Listening to Richard Franklin give the descriptions of the frozen ground and the ice and the people caught with, exhaling the last breath and the couple on the bench, and it was very eerily, it just struck a chord. It was really well done. And then the idea that it was caught up with the street musician. Yeah. Street magician. Thanks for infecting me, Keith. I needed that. For some reason,
we don't have many street magicians in the U.S.
Maybe that's it. That was a really cool idea, and I really dug that. And I like the fact that Joe and they're kind of given stuff to do. I think Richard Franklin does a really decent Third Doctor. for most of it. But then when you got to the end, again, it kind of felt like maybe it's just because I was getting acclimated to it, and then I was beginning to pick at it. It didn't seem like it was quite as good. But initially, it was like, oh, wow, that's pretty good. Now, his Brigadier, I don't want to talk about the Brig, but
I don't ever judge these actors for their portrayal of the other roles in this, because, first of all, this is a Companion Chronicle, and this is the companion that's often relaying the story to you. So you have to give them a pass and forgiveness. Second is, we tend to want to do that because we have people like Fraser Hines that does a incredible second Doctor. And, in fact, we have Peter Purvis who does a very passable first Doctor. So when you get somebody that comes in to read a third Doctor story, I think it's just our natural inclination to go, oh, we want him to be a good third Doctor. But I think, and Keith and I probably can attest to this, we probably think less so of his impression because we've heard a very good impression of the Third Doctor Adventures. So
Tim Treloris is phenomenal.
Yeah. And so I think that I have to give him a pass anytime. And when they use female voices too, I give them a pass because it's near impossible. I don't want them to go to the point where they're spoofing. Well, I don't want them to go so far as that they're spoofing somebody, but I do want them to kind of lighten and kind of fall into that maybe that more softer tones. But I actually differ from you guys on this. I thought from A to B or A to Z it was a great story, a good story. I liked the fact that I agree with you. The first half of the story is really good because of the exploration of what's going on with this magician. But I really like the fact that we turn around and find out that he's this prisoner that's been, abandoned on Earth and wiped the memory. I thought that was kind of a cool, intriguing turn for it. And I think that something like what you were saying, that the story had more potential. Well, one of you guys were saying the story had more potential for something else. And I agree with you as a main range. As a Companion Chronicle, I think this works because I think it kind of encapsulates two folds of this story of what's going on here. And I think really the point of this story is is it unrequited love? Is that what you call it? Where between Yates and Joe. And I actually was quite frankly surprised that the Doctor, not the Brig so much, but the Doctor had so much of a role in this story, because as this story sets up, the Doctor is very, very in it, very, very little. And I kind of like that because I thought this is kind of neat to see through the companion's eyes without having the Doctor there fixing things, and to have Mike be able to do some heroic things and do some of the investigative stuff himself. I almost cringed a little bit when the Doctor sort of shows up, and I thought, oh, here comes the Doctor to save the day. I think the fortunate thing about that is when the Doctor shows up, he kind of bumbles it up by releasing the memories back to the magician. And so I thought, oh, that's a neat turn too there. So I thought that was kind of cool. And it comes down to Mike being the savior at the end as well anyway. Yeah. And so to me, that makes for a really good Companion Chronicle. I wouldn't want all of them to do this, where we suddenly give the companion their entire own story, where they're doing everything on their own, because I think that could get a little tired too. But it's refreshing to see that come in. Mm-hmm. And also,
and it works really well in this era because it's such a group dynamic. It is. You can have these, as the unit box set show, you can have these stories without having the Doctor there, because they're used to dealing with this sort of thing.
Exactly.
Thinking more on it, I think the biggest downfall for me is actually the magician plotline.
Really?
The idea that he's a magician. The fact that if it was just some dude and didn't know what he was doing, I think I would have liked a little bit better. But the magician was, the fact that he was a magician adds just one extra layer of, is that really not necessary?
Okay.
There's a great story underneath, and there's this misdirection because you had a great title. It feels like they shoehorned the fact that he's a magician into it. If he was just this dude somehow magically having these powers and not knowing why, I think I would have enjoyed it better.
I think I can excuse it a little bit, though, or at least...
It seems very 70s, though.
I think at least retro-fix it by the fact that the Doctor explains that he has this innate quality to use his talents to entertain. And I agree, the direction they're going with it, where he's just this guy with magical powers, it would lend to that story, I think, better. But I think it still works for the fact that this guy has no idea who he is originally.
Right.
He has all of these false memories, and he has this urge to entertain. And so I can kind of see, if you're on Earth and you're the only person that can do these magical, mysterious things, what are you going to gravitate to? Magic.
Yeah.
So you're going to put forth that persona of being a magician anyway. So I think that, to me, it worked in that sense. But I can see where it would work better in the way that you're saying.
I guess I also kind of... the story could have all come across very much like a guy that suddenly realizes he has these powers, and it's almost an X-Men type story of him struggling with what they are. I think that might have lent itself better, but
See, I think that would probably lend itself better if we were dealing more with he's a supervillain who doesn't know
right
what he is.
I think that's what would have tied it in better.
The story that I thought we were getting, which is the magician who doesn't understand where the power is coming from. Oh, by the way, you also happen to be a mass murderer. Oh, because then it took this weird kind of dark turn, and even the end of it is so much bigger and grandeur. Because initially we're trapped in the house, and then we're on a bridge, and there's battlements, and we're overlooking the river, and it's a very big in scope, ending battle.
That was London Bridge, right? That's that's right where Unit HQ is now.
He makes the comment of, oh no, that was, I think it was, he makes the comment because as he's relaying this from his present day,
he makes the Tower of London.
He makes the comment of,
you have offices there now.
In fact, I think you have offices there now, and as we know from the Power 3, they're actually in London Tower, or London Bridge Tower, so.
But yeah, I agree. I just think it was just a little bit of a. I liked the sweet, misguided guy a lot more than I liked the. Oh, you're not such a nice man now. Why would you choose this vaudevillian persona? That seems weird. That you would. I don't know.
It's the 70s.
Yeah, at this point anything goes. But then again, all of the villains of Doctor Who in the 70s were kind of.
Well, and I don't know that it's even as much vaudevillian as it is. Street magician. I mean, that's what it comes to. 70s street magician. Yeah. That's just kind of from the 50s, 60s, and then bleed over into the 70s. I think he had that kind of street performers, and I think that they would have taken
one step removed from Talons.
I think he would have taken on that kind of persona in the streets as well. So
he would have became like a David Blaine of the 70s.
Yeah, no, that would have been out of character because that would have been predated. So. There's been an anachronism there.
Yeah. I think I like how they framed the story also of Mike telling some unit dude about it. But this didn't occur to me until listening to this, and I kind of had the same issue, a niggle in the back of my mind with the unit box set that I listened to that brought back all the entire old crew.
You know who this is he's relaying this to?
Were you Sue Osgood or
no,
Kate?
It's Kate.
Was it Kate?
Yeah.
But
I didn't get that. You just assume that that's Kate?
I got every feeling from it at the very end that that's Kate. Especially from the fact that he says something about, something keyed into, I'm not going to recall it now, but something keyed into specifically that it would have to be somebody that knew the Brig very well. So.
Didn't get that. I kind of thought he was just talking to a secretary or something.
Well, he's not talking to a secretary because he's turning over alien artifacts.
So he's talking
it's
to
obviously somebody from Unit.
Yeah. So somebody in Unit, admittedly, but maybe he couldn't get an appointment with the head guy, so he's like, I'll tell you.
It was actually somebody from the box set that I thought, oh, maybe he's talking to this person. But
could be, but this was done
this
so
was
many
long
years ago.
Yeah,
so
before
that'd
that.
have been a lot of forethought or some retroactive planning.
It was more retroactive because they left it so ambiguous of who he was actually talking to. You can kind of fit in whoever you want,
sure.
Which is the nice thing. But has there been a story? I think I've asked this before that dealt with a follow-up of his actions in Invasion of the Dinosaurs? Because he seems to be back in good graces, and I don't think he should be.
No. Number one, this takes place before.
But the retelling of the story.
And number two, yes, in Planet of the Spiders, Mike returns to help with the... remember, he meets up with Sarah Jane at that hippie Tibetan group.
That's right.
Yeah, he gets a bit of a redemption there as well because he ends up ends up helping the Doctor.
I agree with you. Where I feel like I still need another half step between
like
where
he's
we
in good
left
graces with the Doctor, but not Unit. Like he needs to mend those bridges with Unit more than he did in Planet of the Spiders? Or did you think he got...
No, I don't think he mended bridges with Unit in Planet of the Spiders.
That's what I think he needs to do.
Oh, you think he needs to?
Yeah, I think he needs to. I think we need that story.
I think I need him to be
because
hardened.
in the Unit box set later down the road, spoilers, he joins up and is fighting.
Well, sure, no, okay, yes.
It feels like he needs something. He was dishonorably discharged.
I think that's something to speak to when we get to there, because in this, he's just showed up with some Unit tech, stuff he's just turning it in. So it's not like they're going to turn their back on him or shove him out the door or something like that. So I don't think it's necessary for this story.
No, but it just made me think of this. As we get there,
yes, maybe that should happen.
No, I agree.
I'd have to watch Planet of the Spiders again, because I think even the Brigadier softens on him, softens on his portrayal. That on the flip side of that, though, it is explained even in Invasion of the Dinosaurs that he had a nervous breakdown. Or it was at the beginning of Planet of the Spiders, they had a nervous breakdown. And you get the impression that Unit absolved him of everything because it was a medical situation or a mental situation. And so you get that impression from one of the two stories. I can't remember if it's the end of one or the beginning of the other. Maybe I just need to go back and rewatch It's the beginning of one or the end of the other. And that absolves him of what he attempted to do or what he helped attempt to do in it really comes across as a throwaway line, if I remember how it's addressed. But that could fix everything from there on, is just simply looking at that.
I remember personally feeling betrayed, even though I knew it was coming, that Yates went that direction in Dinosaurs. And so then when we got to Planet of the Spiders, it did feel like, okay, we've kind of moved the goalposts a little bit closer, and that we're not exactly absolving him, but we're kind of, and I could see Unit kind of very quietly maybe brushing it under the rug. I think maybe dishonorable discharge is a little too far.
It just seems
like
I think he was medically discharged because they address it as being a breakdown.
Okay.
Mental breakdown.
But I agree with you. I think I want one more half step closer of, I want somebody to explain it to me that, okay, all's forgiven. Yeah. I want that. Because I want Mike to be in the good graces.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, I don't think that's necessary for the story.
Not to this story.
No, not to this.
And that's maybe something that's what we ought to do, is we ought to do a companion archive with Mike Yates. I don't think we've done that yet.
I don't think so either.
Maybe dig out a couple of things we could review and talk about Yates's progression as a character. So
yeah. I just had the thought while he was relaying it in the framing of, especially when he was referencing other Unit people, I was like, oh yeah, well, why is that a thing or
not?
And
he's so cavalier at making jokes about the Official Secrets Act that it's kind of like, I don't know if you're allowed to do that.
It comes across
if you're talking to Unit, I think you're okay.
Right. Anybody else could. I don't know if you're allowed to do that because of the history.
I think you guys are giving him a hard enough time. I think because the Brig's no longer there. Benton obviously is no longer there. Well, maybe Benton is, and the newer stuff.
He comes back, but he's retired.
But that's just it. I mean, a lot of these guys at the time that he's turning this artifact in, you get the impression that, nobody probably even knows that he was. If everybody toes the line of what was a mental breakdown, anybody that would come into contact, including Kate or Osgood, if we're going to presume it was them, they would maybe know the history, but they wouldn't feel betrayed because they were removed from that.
Right.
So you could probably walk in, sit down, and have a conversation, and be revered as a former Unit soldier or officer. So I think it's, again, from this from this story, I think it's okay.
Sure.
Coming back in another story and fighting alongside my comrades, if it's not addressed, then maybe there's an issue there. So.
No, I agree. We're blowing them completely out of proportion. Mountain all hills, but I had the same thought. It was like, they let you back in the door? And again, I'm on Mike's side. I want Mike to be allowed back in the door. I don't know if I'd give him a key to the officers' lounge, but I
obviously they're not in Unit. They're at some bar somewhere.
Yeah, wherever they're at.
Well, yeah, because he doesn't know where the offices are for sure. He's heard they have an office down there. I think Scott Handcock handles this story pretty well. I do think that perhaps from what you're saying is that maybe he had an idea and went into it and realized the only way to kind of resolve this was to have our villain be summarily killed. And so I think the easy fix for that is make him already a mass murderer and committing new crimes
Right.
knowingly, somewhat knowingly. And I think that you can only justify dispatching somebody that powerful by killing them, and you can only do that by giving maybe a little more of a heavy backstory of making them a criminal. So I think maybe that's where Handcock maybe had to go down that line, and that's why you feel that tonal shift or that change of direction.
Well, and it's set up with such a heavy intro when Mike's talking about we didn't know it was in store for us, and if only we had, and there are some things that we still don't talk about, and it's like, ooh, what is this going to... And then instead we get, la, 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 look, magic, and it's like, oh, okay. And then the heavy comes back at the end, and that's where I feel like, wow, these just didn't quite gel as well as I think... Because if you start off with this, if you're warning me how heavy the story is, well, go ahead and tell me the heavy. Give me a heavy story, and then we killed him at the end. It was like, oh, wow, yeah, that was dark, but that was cool. And instead, street magic. Okay. But not that it was bad. Like I said, I enjoyed it.
I do like that Yates mentions unit doesn't even stand for that.
Yeah, I know.
I felt bad in a way. He sounds like such an old fogey. They get, well, back in my day, and well, you probably don't know this, but or maybe you do, and it doesn't stand for that anymore. And I heard your new offices over here. It's like, oh man, you're like the lost grandpa who's there
trying to get his foot back in the door to relive his good old days.
That's what made me think this was an underling, like that somebody just go humor him, and he'll turn in whatever he's got, and
if it's even anything,
yeah. He dug this thing up in his backyard. It's probably,
I think because of the connections it makes to the new series, I think that also lends heavy to the fact that I think it's Kate. I think it just makes more of an impact if he's talking to an old friend's daughter who's now in charge of unit. So maybe I'm just painting that, but it seemed like something more led me to think that
you have a much prettier painting in your head, so I'll go with that. Yeah, okay, Kate. Any excuse for more Kate, sure.
But it's a good story. I give it some middle marks. I think it's good. Yeah. All right, should we move on to a Peladon story? The Prisoner of
Peladon. The planet Peladon has joined the Galactic Federation and has undergone a painful period of change. Still eager to embrace alien culture, King Peladon has welcomed refugee ice warriors to his world, innocent creatures that are fleeing the new Martian Republic. But as an old friend returns to the capital, there is murder in the refugee camps. Could the truth lie in an ancient legend?
Bum, bum, bum.
I love this story.
Really?
I really love this story. Better than either of the televised Peladon stories, I think.
Oh, is that right?
I think so.
I had wanted to go back and watch, and I may still do that this week. I just couldn't get around to it. I wanted to go back and watch Curse of Peladon, or is it Monster? Monster of Peladon, to remember King Peladon and the story surrounding that. I had vague memories and still could make some of the connections. And then, of course, wanted to advance this week and watch Curse before we review Brig next week. But,
yeah. I did get to go back and rewatch those.
Did you?
And enjoyed them a lot more the second time.
Yeah.
A
lot of classic Who is that way. You watch it the first time and then you kind of get more out of it the second time, so it becomes more of an enjoyable story.
And it went by a lot quicker. Even Curse, 6 parts, it went by fairly quickly.
That's good.
Curse was the one that I was not looking forward to rewatching as much, and enjoyed it more than I did previously. Good.
Well,
if we were still doing Friday Night Who, that would have been the one that would have been this.
I think the cool thing about it is the fact that this does make a nice bridge between Monster and Curse, because it's the king has now got more footing from his newly appointedness in I mean, he's quite young, the young king in Monster, and then now he's had a little bit of time under his belt.
What, 5 years?
Yeah. But still maybe not as strong of a king as he probably should be at this time. But by the time he's relaying this story to his daughter, he clearly is, which in turn we know becomes the Queen of Peladon in Curse of Peladon. So.
Well, and it also helps lay some of the groundwork too, where it talks about his new the phrase they use, the minister dude, where the guy who's off trying to appease the refugees.
Yeah.
Who replaced he winds up being in a heavy part in Curse, which is a kind of another nice through line.
Yes.
I love this idea that there's a new Martian regime and there are refugees on Peladon that he's there protecting. That it just adds such a nice layer and helps. While we know in Curse they're at war, it's not Martian Civil War, but it's a war with wherever it was. It's just nice to see more turmoil, and it's kind of a step towards Martians were good and not the bad guy. Martians are the bad guy. It's a nice stepping between where they're being both at the same time in this story.
Yeah.
Well, and it also sets up the idea that unlike the Daleks, which are pretty much always the heavy, the Ice Warriors could go either way depending on which story you're in.
Right.
And, well, maybe now it's not even so much that it's which story, but which faction.
Yeah, absolutely.
That maybe these are the guys who did the usurping and the
well, just the idea that there is a Martian Civil War going on,
yeah,
the mind just reels at the ideas of stories you could tell with
now
this.
I want that box set.
Yeah, I know, right? And the fact that the Doctor then shows back up and ties everything together. And one of my favorite things about it is Peladon calling the Doctor out on his gleefulness of what's going on. And because the Third Doctor always did, even though he took things seriously, he always relished at being smarter than everyone else. Yep. And I love the fact that Peladon called him out on it.
Yep. Well, I think that also really does, it goes above and beyond in mounds of developing Peladon's character.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is, 4 or 5 years in, and he still feels like he's being walked on and a puppet of the Federation, and being used by both sides. And he has a soft side. He has that more pacifist side that comes across in the earlier story. But he's really trying to do what's best, but still seems to kind of fumble around what really needs to be done. And he even mentions that they are struggling with unshackling themselves from the superstitions of the past.
Yeah.
And so that has to have something to do with it. So I think this really kind of becomes the breaking point for him as a ruler, that I'm in control here and I'm tired of being manipulated, and I'm tired of people keeping secrets from me, and really standing up. And that means standing up to Alpha Centauri, and that means standing up to the Doctor as well. Mm-hmm. I really love the usage of Alpha Centauri in this, too. I did not see that coming.
How panicked were you?
What? Yeah.
What? No, you can't do that. Oh.
I figured that there was something hiding in that tower. I even later suspected that it was whatever they were looking for. I did not suspect that Alpha Centauri was helping it.
No, me neither.
Or was the one that was hiding the princess up there.
Right before they went for the reveal, I had this sinking suspicion that, the locks and the forearm. Like right before that, I was like...
right before the reveal was him making the comment of the person that has snuck out quietly. And I realized that, Alpha Centauri hasn't been here for a while, and that I suspected it then. They. I don't know what pronoun do we use. They used it and it is. So is that the proper pronoun?
They changed it several times in this,
no,
didn't
was
they?
It the whole time.
In this, Alpha was constantly referred to as they or it.
No, they. I listened for
really?
they. Yeah, because I kept thinking, in today's society, had this been written, we'd be using the pronoun they. They were saying it every time. And in fact, it was not surprising to me because of when this was written, but it was surprising to me that because we now are in this era of that, the preferred pronoun is they. And to hear it almost sounded sexist, or not sexist, but bigoted. Well, and I thought, no, that's not right, because we can't convey our society to society and Doctor Who and what Centaurians would be.
It's him through the whole thing, and it drove me nuts.
Oh, is it?
That's odd, because he's supposed to be genderless.
Who's to say if that's right?
Unless Alpha Centauri chooses to use that as pronoun by then, who knows? Anyway, it doesn't matter, except for, it was very clearly it every time. So to find out that Alpha Centauri was really kind of behind this manipulation, I thought, wow, I didn't expect that to go there. And it works out, because you're like, oh, yeah, okay. And it makes sense why Alpha Centauri is doing what they are doing. But it was unexpected. It was quite unexpected.
Well, and I was really dumbstruck with the idea that they were going to make Alpha Centauri the villain. That then there was a nefarious plot. And I was like, no, we can't do that. No. It's always the Ice Warrior that's the bad guy in Peladon. you can't do that.
Or the priest.
And
then, they towed the line with that one, too.
Yeah, they did.
I mean, they were still an antagonist.
Yeah.
But then when it was revealed that, oh, no, they had spirited the princess of Mars off. And I was like, oh, okay, you're forgiven. I had this huge weight come out because I was really concerned that they were.
Well, and more than making Alpha Centauri a bad guy, the character change, if he had been behind it all, would have been my biggest issue,
right?
Because it is so spineless in Curse of Peladon that granted that's been 50 some years, but still it's not something within that character's purview to do something like that unless for very good reason or, ordered by the Federation. And so the fact that they went there but didn't go there all the way, I really liked.
I appreciated that. Yeah. It was a nice way to utilize a character in a way that didn't fit them in a mold,
Right.
Because the Alpha Centauri from the two television stories is really the same character. It's really the same, fits the same mold, but this one changes that enough without changing the characters.
Yeah.
All 3 television stories.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's true. The whole brief moment.
Empress and Mars.
So now I'm immediately trying to figure out from an Ice Warrior timeline where that Civil War fits, and have we seen pieces of it maybe on either side that we weren't quite aware but actually could be part of this?
We'll have to go back and kind of try to fit the timeline together and see.
It would depend on where Seeds.
I sense an infographic coming on.
Yeah. I really thought David Troughton did a magnificent job. I was so glad. That was the neat thing about this being a Companion Chronicle and not being one of the companions that we consider a companion.
Yeah.
Coming from King Peladon's perspective and having that be one of the Companion Chronicles makes me excited that there's a chance that we could see a lot more of that down the line. I haven't listened to a lot of Companion Chronicles, so I don't know how often that will happen. But the go-tos are always the companions that traveled with the Doctor. Mm-hmm. But to be able to do something like this with a character that was in a story that is considered a companion, didn't travel with the Doctor, but you could consider a companion. I think it still works.
At least an ally.
Yeah.
And it opened it up in such a way that it really enriched the Peladon experience, because you could have told this story with Sarah Jane or Joe or somebody else who was traveling with the Doctor at the time. But you're an outsider coming into it then, versus somebody who's been on Peladon, who knows the trials that Peladon has gone through. And obviously we're familiar with it from the episodes, but to really hammer home we're striving to get out of the shadow of this. We're trying to be better than this. That really, I felt, added to this nice, rich tapestry of what was going on, that it was from his point of view. So I really appreciated that.
Going back to the King giving the Doctor his what for. First of all, that reminded me of Donna in Runaway Bride.
Yeah.
Telling him to find somebody because he really needs somebody to keep him in check. Mm-hmm. Which I think could have been borrowed probably when in writing this story, might have been borrowed. Mm-hmm. But it was a nice parallel and echo to that. The other thing, though, that I sort of felt, because you kind of get defensive of your doctors when you hear them attacked in that way. And while I think that what King Peladon said is deservedly so, I also have to look at this from the point that from the get-go when the Doctor shows up, you get the impression that he wasn't sticking around. In fact, it doesn't say why he's there, but you get the impression that maybe it's even accidental, because it's like he almost tries
Doctor, it likely is.
He tries to avoid them first of all. Then when he says hi to them and does their greetings and things like that, he's about ready to take off, and Peladon almost insists that he stay and help.
Yeah, that's true.
And so I think I can almost side on yes, maybe the things that the Doctor did were wrong, but you are the one that dragged him into this.
Right.
So you kind of get what you signed up for.
part of my enjoyment of the What For is a Doyleist aspect of it, is the fact of how many plots are there that would be easily resolved with communication.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things he berated him about.
That's
was
true.
Just loop me in, and it wouldn't have been an issue.
Right.
Just hearing that acknowledged is always enjoyable.
No, I completely agree. And I'm certainly taking the Watsonian perspective from the other side. But, yeah, just overall, I quite enjoyed this story. And it's got me excited to go back to Peladon again next week, although that could be a disaster. The other interesting thing about this is Nicola Bryant directing this. Mm-hmm. I did listen to some of the interview. I did listen to all the interview that they have on the disc as well. And from what they... did you guys hear it? From what they say... she's in the interview with David Troughton and Nicholas Briggs, who did the voices of the... it's my turn. Who did the voices of the Ice Warriors. They're all three talking with the... I can't remember who produced this one, but... they're Nicholas Briggs and David Troughton are both very, very impressed on how well-versed Nicola Bryant was in the Peladon and the Ice Warrior stories. In fact, down to the fact that they explained that that her and Nicholas argued the way that Ice Warriors would necessarily sound, and she had a couple of good points, and he had a couple of good points as well. But sounds like they ended up doing it two ways and then deciding which way to go. And what we got is what they went.
That's awesome.
But she says she did a ton of research. That she watched the episodes that she could. She even did a little bit of online research. She watched some clips from other things, and she really delved into this.
I wonder if she would listen to her story with the Ice Warriors.
I think that was done after this.
I thought that was really early on in the line.
Oh, it must have been.
Dawn?
It must have.
Red Dawn is
no,
like number.
You're right. It must have been
something.
because she says, that story, yeah.
That's the only
you're
one
right.
I know
Well,
of.
no, I'm thinking. Well, Bride, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I thought you were referring to. But now that I think about it, I think Bride must have been done before this too, because she makes she comments to David Troughton, who says, "Is there another Peladon story? I'd come back and do it again," which is encouraging because they might come back and do some more King Peladon. And she makes a comment, "Yeah, there's another Peladon story, but the king's gone by then." And so that would have been Bride at that point.
Right.
Yeah. This, Bride was 2008. This was 2009.
Okay, so they had already done that one. So yeah, so she's got a Peladon story as well, not necessarily just an Ice Warrior story, but a Peladon story as well. So. What else do you guys think about this one? Any other
I don't think I have anything else. I think we touched on everything.
Yeah, it was thoroughly enjoyable, and I would totally support more Peladon stories if you can continue to tell them of this magnitude,
of this quality. But I don't know how many more King Peladon stories I want.
That's the unfortunate side effect of it, and I think
it
we'll
depends
touch
on
on
the
this a
story
little
they're
bit more
gonna
next
tell.
week. Is how many times can you go back to that particular well with Peladon and
because
the
they did
political
something
makeup that it is
so different in this story from the previous two Peladon stories. If they can do something very different like this, I'd be okay with more King Peladon stories. But if there's, I want them different from the televised stories.
I think what makes this satisfactory to me too that they did this story is the fact that Peladon's daughter in Curse of Peladon makes the comment, and I remember this, that when she meets the Doctor, that my father told me many stories about you.
Right.
And I thought, well, this at least makes it plural. And it would be kind of cool to maybe even have one more story in there with the Doctor and the King.
Yeah.
In the way that you say, I don't know how we could go back to take the King off of Peladon, and he and the Doctor end up having to go somewhere on some ambassadorship, and things go wrong. I think you could take
some Federation conference,
or tie it back in with we're going to take the princess back home to Mars to lay claim to the throne.
Something like that as well. Yeah.
I
think
want that story.
I think you can bring Peladon back and do it
if you do it well
without having all of the political machinations of.
You just need to stay away
Peladon.
from Agador in the story.
Yes, you do have to stay away from Agador. That's true. So they stayed away from Agador in this one a bit.
Other than nice references.
Yeah, they did have references.
I've listened ahead. Spoilers.
All right, well, Sean, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, as hinted at, we return to Peladon again.
We do?
Next week. We're listening to the main range story, Bride of Peladon, featuring the Fifth Doctor and Perian Airman and the planet of Peladon again. So this kind of made a very nice segue into that. The following week, we are back in the Brigverse with our review of Nick Walters, The Man from Yesterday. And it drove me nuts because I was just lazy. I didn't do the research, but we kept saying Nick Walters, The Man from Yesterday. I go, why does Nick Walters' name sound familiar? Well, duh, it's because he wrote Mutually Assured Domination. And I went, he's that Nick Walters.
Yeah.
So suddenly I got much more excited to read the book because I remember how much we liked that one. But we'll be coming back with our reviews of that. And I don't remember what's after that, so I'll have to go. You go to the website and look while you're checking out different places to listen to us and donate to us and feedback us.
It's Sunday now. Tomorrow is Monday. If this gets out on the feeds a little bit, you want to talk just briefly about what's happening tomorrow night?
Just briefly, I guess it's technically a piece of news. The Fathom Events here in the States are doing a showing of the director's cut of Genesis of the Daleks. And hopefully many of you are very excited about that. I will be down at our local Regal movie theater taking part in that. So if you're in the Topeka area and want to come out, come to our table and say hi. If you come during the presentation, I won't be there because I'll be in watching Genesis. So there's that.
So we want to thank also Regal for allowing us to be there and set up tomorrow night.
Definitely.
Yes.
All right, very good. Anything else we need to touch on before we close the show out? Great. So. If that's going to do it for this week, until next week, I'm Glenn.
I'm Sean.
No, I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everybody.
Be seeing ya.
And thanks for listening.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.